Okay, before you go at me for questions, I just want to flag a couple of other things for you in other news. First, on climate, I want to say the Secretary General welcomes today's announcement by the government of Denmark that it will allocate 60% of climate financial aid to climate adaptation measures in its national budget proposal. The Secretary General has called for at least half of all climate finance to be devoted to adaptation and resilience, and Denmark's response is a powerful example of climate leadership for other donor countries and multilateral development banks to follow. This is also a very strong signal for all countries and vulnerable communities on the front lines that badly need protections from climate impacts. Regarding the $100 billion goal, Denmark has demonstrated its leadership in both in the quantity and quality of climate finance, with its target of delivering around $500 million annually in grant financing, mainly targeting the poorest and most vulnerable countries. The world will be watching closely for two other advanced economies, and particularly from the G7, to come forward with their contributions before COP26, which, as you know, is taking place in Glasgow this fall. And today, the UN Environment Programme announced that the global elimination of leaded petrol or gasoline for motor vehicles, which follows the exhaustion of Algiers' last stocks in July. The Secretary General called this a milestone for multilateralism and added that this achievement again shows that what we can accomplish when we work together across countries and sectors for the common good. We must now turn to the same commitment to ending the triple crises of climate disruption, biodiversity loss, and pollution, he said. According to UNEP, the official end of the leaded gasoline will prevent more than 1.2 million premature deaths and save $2.45 trillion a year. More details on UNEP's website. And speaking of biodiversity, the Secretary General this morning spoke virtually to the biodiversity pre-conference of the parties hosted by Colombia. He said that humanity is waging a senseless and self-destructive war against nature, and that as we reduce the variety of an abundance of life, we remove options from society, from medicines to foods to the crucial solutions we need to mitigate and adapt to climate disruption. Mr. Guterres added that we know the problem and we have the solutions, but so far our efforts have not been adequate. He told participants that the world is counting on an ambitious agreement that equips us with the tools to transform our relationships with nature. Above all, we need commitment, ambition, credibility, he said. His full remarks are online. And today, our colleagues at the UN mission in Mali, otherwise known as MINUSMA, released their quarterly report on trends in human rights violations and abuses, which says that between April and June, at least 527 civilians were killed, injured, abducted, or just disappeared. This is an overall increase of more than 25% from the first quarter of this year. Armed groups, including the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara, as well as JNIM, killed, injured, or abducted 54% of the victims nationwide. Human rights violations were also documented during the security operations conducted by Malian forces, as well as international and regional forces. The full report is online. Just want to flag that over the weekend, the Emergency Relief Coordinator, Martin Griffiths, started a 7-day visit to Syria, Lebanon, and Turkey. In his meeting with senior government officials and representatives of the humanitarian and donor communities, Mr. Griffiths reiterated the grave hardship that civilians continue to endure 10 years into the conflict. During his travels, Mr. Griffiths will look at the complexities of the humanitarian situation in the region, the challenges ahead, and how the humanitarian system can address these. This year, 13.4 million people need assistance across Syria, and we, along with our partners, need $4.2 billion to help them. So far, about 20% of that funding has been received. And as you may have followed this morning, the Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, Tor Venesland, briefed the Security Council on the situation in the region. He said that 3 months after the deadly escalation between Israel and militants in Gaza, the situation remains tense. with militants launching incendiary balloons on multiple occasions and Israeli defense forces firing missiles. Mr. Wennesland called on all sides to show restraint, avoid provocation and defense, and keep the protests peaceful. He added that the UN continues to engage all sides to maintain calm and provide urgent assistance to residents of Gaza. In addition, he urged Israelis to cease the demolitions and seizures of Palestinian property throughout the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, in line with its obligations under international humanitarian law. He also welcomed Qatar's contribution to $40 million over 4 months to the UN to provide cash assistance to some 100,000 needy families in Gaza. And he thanked donors who contributed some $45 million to the requested $95 million during the humanitarian flash appeal. His full remarks are online. And before hearing from Mr. Wennesland, this morning the Security Council voted to extend the mandate of the UN Interim Force in Lebanon, otherwise known as UNIFIL. That was done for another year. They also renewed sanctions measures in Mali for another year and extended the mandate of the panel of experts until September of next year. Finally, the mandate of the UN Assistance Mission in Somalia was also extended till May of next year. And our colleagues at the peacekeeping mission in the Central African Republic are telling us that yesterday some 50 suspected combatants from the 3R armed groups, and the 3R stands for Retour, Réclamation and Réhabilitation, attacked the village of Dilapoko in the Mambere Kedefi prefecture. That's in the country's southwest. One civilian died, another was wounded. Our peacekeeping colleagues immediately sent a robust patrol to verify the incident to protect civilians. The injured civilians were evacuated to a local hospital for treatment. And COVAX note over the weekend, a third shipment of 800,000 COVID vaccines arrived in the Dominican Republic through COVAX. To date, close to 6 million people in the country have received the first dose of the vaccine. Moving to El Salvador, the country received a third shipment of COVAX thanks to a donation from the United States. This shipment, which consisted of 188,000 doses, brings the total number of vaccine doses received from COVAX to 3,600,000. And finally, in Yemen, 151 doses of vaccines arrived yesterday in Aden. This is the second batch of part of 1.9 million doses that Yemen is anticipated to receive this year. They had already received the first batch of 360,000 doses in March. The UN has contributed to the management, reception, and distribution of the vaccines with national authorities in Yemen. And lastly, yesterday was the International Day Against Nuclear Tests, and it was also the 30th anniversary of the closure of the largest nuclear testing site in the Soviet Union, the Semipalatinsk nuclear site in Kazakhstan. And I apologize for the mispronunciation. Soon after the closure of that site, countries started negotiating the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, which was adopted 5 years later. In his message to mark the day, the Secretary General said the full potential of the CTBT has not been realized, as the treaty has not entered into force despite its near universal acceptance among states. And he urged those who have not yet ratified to do so. Okay. Betul.
Thank you, Steph. Another question on Afghanistan. Just wondering if the UN, or when was the last time for the COVAX initiative to send vaccines to Afghanistan? And have you been in touch with the Taliban in terms of providing vaccines to the Afghan population?
It's a very good question. Well, it's up on the website, but we can check. We are in touch with their health and education authorities, obviously on a wide variety of matters, but I will check specifically on the vaccines issue. Okay, let's see if there's anybody in the chat. Oh, go ahead, please, Kristen.
Any more details you can provide about the Secretary General's concerns when he meets with members of the Security Council on Afghanistan?
You know, the meeting he'll have with the P5 this afternoon is really should be seen as an extension of his good offices in trying to get unity in the international community, unity in the Security Council on Afghanistan in the days forward. I think the Secretary General has been very clear on what is needed from the Taliban, and that is a government that is inclusive, with minorities and women being represented, a full respect for human rights, right, especially for women and girls, and also insurance that the Afghanistan would not be used as a place to launch terrorist attacks. Dulcie.
Thanks. Do you have any updates on staff, national and international, who may have been evacuated since August 22nd?
There's been no, I just spoke to our security colleagues before coming down here. There's been no major relocation or any relocation that I'm aware of since we last informed you of that.
When you say major, you're talking about under 50 or so?
I'm not, you know, maybe one or two people were relocated, but I'm nothing that's been reported to me, and nothing of a large scale.
But Pakistan said it is relocating or evacuating staff, national and international. So do you have those numbers?
Pakistan said they're evacuating their nationals?
No, UN personnel.
Yeah, as I said, I have we've been in discussions with the Pakistanis. Secretary General spoke to the foreign minister on Friday, but as I said, I have no details to share with you on any relocation.
And one other question about the airport. Will the Secretary General be discussing with the P5 some plans or proposals regarding the security of the airport in Kabul?
Well, you know, obviously, the issue of the airport is an important one. We are not involved, as far as I know, in any discussions on the operations of the airport. The Secretary General will be discussing Afghanistan in general when he meets the 5 permanent members. Yes, Betul.
Just a follow-up step on the airport. Does the UN have any presence at the airport right now? And what happens after the 31st of August deadline? Will you stay there if you have any presence, or will you leave the airport?
We heard from Hervé that UNICEF has some presence in dealing with children. I'm not aware of any other presence. What happens the day after, I don't know. We very much hope that the Taliban will be able to secure the airport and provide an environment in which the airport can function, an environment in which aircraft operators feel that their planes can land and take off safely. Yes, Gregory. And then we'll go to Iftikhar, to Abdelhamid. Go ahead.
Hi, Stéphane. Thank you very much. So are there any discussions about, in the margin of United Nations, to deploy the peacekeepers on Afghanistan?
No,
Thank you.
Not that I've heard in any way, shape, or form. Abdelhamid.
Thank you, Stéphane. Mr. Westland, in his remarks, he mentioned that the Palestinian Authority arrested 29 Palestinian peace activists, human rights defenders. Did he in any way contact the PA and raise the issue, or just he was reporting that based on the press report?
My understanding, I mean, we've been in contact with the PA over the last few months on this issue. Okay.
Okay, and the second question, he didn't mention the case of Miss Anwar Deek, whom I raised her issues several times. She's giving birth any day now in her prison cell. Do you have any answer to that?
I don't. I mean, Mr. Van Islaan, I think, gave a very thorough briefing of the situation on the ground. Now, obviously, there are always specific humanitarian cases. I think the fact that he may not have mentioned one specific case doesn't take away from the importance of every case. Okay. Thank you all. We will see you tomorrow. And we hope to have more Afghanistan briefings for you this week. Oh. Sorry.